This past week, Sunday evening, we were here getting ready for our Tikkun Leil Shavuot. My opinion, the most beautiful evening of the Hebrew calendar, the time in which we get ready to accept and to receive the Torah, but also a time in which we embark in deep study of different topics connected to the Torah. And as we were getting ready to start our Tikkun Leil Shavuot, our phones were being flooded with alerts about what happened in Colorado on that same day. Actually, not knowing that I had checked my phone a few minutes before the holiday, someone at the end of the Tikkun came to me and greeted me and said, it's a bittersweet feeling because the holiday is awesome and the evening was amazing, the cheesecake was really good, but I'm sure you know what happened a few hours ago. And it's been a tough week, and one of the things that happened to me and to Rabbi Berkun coincidentally during this week is that we got messages or phone calls from young members of our congregation, students at universities across the country, saying, Rabbi, we need advice. Can we talk? Or maybe the parents of the children. In my case, it was actually a student, a young girl who said, I need help figuring out, how do we navigate these difficult times? And I have to confess it is not common. Usually the people who reach out to the rabbi are way over the age of 50. And even though it is the dream of any rabbi to get a phone call or a text from a young member of our congregation that is spending time at college, when we get those texts seeking for help to navigate times that we don't know how to navigate, it is confusing, it is disheartening, it is complicating, and it's very disappointing. And as I was trying to find some inspiration to answer to this call and to this conversation and to try to find advice for this young person who said, the situation at the place where I live, it's becoming really tough. I'm not being invited at parties. There are some people who I believe were my friends, and now they're saying, I don't want to hang out with you because you're a Zionist, because you support the state of Israel. I'm scared. And I was trying to look for inspiration to answer to those kind of questions and challenges. And I remember that this week we read the priestly benediction. This week's parsha contains these 3 verses that the Kohanim, my ancestors, the people who led the worship in the ancient Israelite religion, would use to bless the nation. It is actually the oldest biblical text that was ever found. The oldest testimony of a piece of biblical literature that we have is a small metal plate that was found in a place called Katef Hinnom, that was probably an amulet worn by a Jew thousands of years ago. And those words were also an important part of me becoming the person that I am, because I remember growing up as a young kid, my grandfather first would test me if I can do this. He said, if you cannot do this, then you don't belong to this family. And in my grandfather's mentality, the world is divided. The world was divided between the Cohen family and the rest of the world. So we need to make sure that you belong. And then as I grew up, it was not only doing the symbol of the Kohanim, but also learning the blessing, so that when I went to synagogue with him, I was able to perform this beautiful and mystical ritual called Duchenen in the Ashkenazi tradition, in which the priest, the Kohanim, bless the congregation. But that text, the priestly benediction, eventually became not only the blessing with which the Kohanim bless the congregation, but also the blessing with which we bless our children. And every Shabbat, not only Kohanim, but any Jew gathers his children around the Shabbat table and blesses them with the words of the priestly benediction. Every Shabbat here at ATJC, in a few minutes, we're going to invite our children to the Bima, and we're going to bless them with those same words. So I want to draw some inspiration for these challenging moments from the words of the priestly benediction. I want to first start with the verse that we invoke before we actually say the blessing, in which we bless our boys and we tell them, Yesimcha Elohim ke Ephraim and Menashe. And it's an odd choice from the rabbis to choose Ephraim and Menashe. For the daughters, it's much more obvious. We want our girls to become Jewish matriarchs like Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. But why don't we bless our boys with being like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, like King David, Moses, King Solomon, Aaron? Why do we choose two characters that the average Jew has no idea who they were? Ephraim and Menashe are, first of all, the first grandchildren of the Torah. And we want our children to pass on the torch of Jewish continuity to the next generation. We want our children to make us grandparents. But not only that, Ephraim and Menashe are the first Jews, so to speak, the first Israelites who were born in a place where the majority of the surroundings are not Jewish. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were born in Canaan, in the land of Israel, and they grew up as members of a small tribe. But Ephraim and Menashe were born in cosmopolitan Egypt, that was as close as it gets to America. And they had the challenge of remaining loyal to the Jewish tradition in an environment that probably was not very welcoming, like the one in which their ancestors lived. Ephraim and Menashe were probably the first Jewish kids to go to college, to learn a different language. Actually, Rashi says Menashe was a translator from Hebrew to Egyptian when Joseph was talking with his siblings. Ephraim and Menashe needed to learn to navigate the difficult challenge of being a Jew in a place that doesn't always make it easy for you to be a Jew. And I think we bless our children with those names, Ephraim and Menashe, because we acknowledge that sometimes Shver zu sein Eid, it is not easy to be a Jew. Sometimes when we live in a place where the majority of the people see something else, when they look at us than what we think we are, it becomes tough. But there's another reason why we bless our children, so that they grow like Ephraim and Menashe. Ephraim and Menashe are the first siblings in the whole Torah that get along well. Starting from Cain and Abel all the way through Joseph and his brothers, in the Torah, in the book of Genesis, children want to kill each other. They don't solve problems through unity. They don't navigate difficult times together. They're always separated. The best case scenario is they live far away from each other, like Joseph. The worst case scenario, Cain and Abel. But Ephraim and Menashe are going to be so close to each other that when Moses decides the allotment of the land of Israel, he's going to put Ephraim and Menashe next to each other. Perhaps we bless them so that they grow to be like Ephraim and Menashe, because we believe that when children are growing in an environment that feel hostile, unity may be a great tool. Togetherness may be a great asset. And we want our children that in the event that they have to navigate challenging times like the ones that we are navigating these days, they stay together. And that togetherness of the Jewish people is perhaps a key for these times not to be so threatening as they feel. And now let's get into the words of the priestly benediction. God blesses us with three things. First is Yebarechecha, of course it's a blessing, and then it says Ve'ishmerecha. The first thing that we want for our children, the first thing that I wished this person who called me was, stay safe, be protected, don't be an idiot. Don't put yourself in places in which your physical or psychological well-being would be at risk. Then, Ya'er Adonai panav elecha bichuneka, light. And light, when it comes to the Jewish tradition, has to do with Torah. You know, many of us have seen countless times in social media these kids that are demonstrating at Columbia University from the river to the sea have no idea which river and which sea. And I want to ask you, do your children know? Do your grandchildren know? If you show them a map of Israel, can they point towards the Jordan River or the Dead Sea or the Sea of Galilee or the Mediterranean or the Red Sea? Do they know where's Tel Aviv and where's Jerusalem? Do they know where's Gaza and what's the West Bank? Why is it called the West Bank? Can they answer the question, why does our people have an eternal right to be sovereign in that land that we call our home? So first protection and then knowledge, Torah, light. We need to educate our children. They are facing tough challenges, and if they are ignorant, it's going to be twice as difficult. And lastly, we bless them with shalom. We bless them with the hope that they will grow eventually up in a world in which they can find peace. It feels challenging. I personally believe that that peace can be found easily in places in which we are like Ephraim and Menashe with our siblings. I believe that part of the solution is to tell them, go to Hillel, go to Chabad, go to places where you feel that you are welcomed. Do not attend places in which people believe you shouldn't be there because of who you are. Try to connect with your Menashe if you're Ephraim, and with your Ephraim if you are Menashe. Look for your brother, because together we are stronger. And work towards not only winning a battle or a war, but building a world in which we can coexist in shalom, in peace. May we be blessed with the future in which the holy words of the priestly benediction are only used for Shabbat tables and for blessing congregations, and don't need to be a source of inspiration to bring in comfort and solace to our young children who are feeling threatened.